Today's reading is Matthew 24, 36, 44. But about that day and hour no one knows, neither the angels of heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. For as the days of Noah were, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing until the flood came and swept them all away. So too will be the coming of the Son of Man. Then two will be in the field. One will be taken and one will be left. Two women will be grinding meal together. One will be taken and one will be left. Keep awake, therefore, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. But understand this. If the owner of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore, you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour. The word of God for the people of God.
Be seated. And I'm going to come alongside that with a reading from Isaiah chapter 2, verses 1 through 5. The word that Isaiah, son of Amoz, saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. In days to come, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established as the highest of the mountains, and shall be raised above the hills. All the nations shall stream to it. Many people shall come and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us in his ways, and that he may walk in his paths. Jono read that to you this morning, but I wanted to do it one more time. I wanted to focus on that very beginning there just for a second. These texts are taught and preached as apocalyptic texts. You've heard it. They're not. They're not. When Jesus lays it out for us, this teaching, the Son of Man, the hour comes, no one knows, not even me. If it was going to be something as important as Jesus coming back, I think he would have known. What he's saying is, be ready. Always be ready. Be ready in your life for me to come, because I don't even know the times and the places that you're going to need me to come. Be ready. Be ready at all times. Be ready, be ready, be ready. The word that Isaiah offers, the son of Amoz, is he is dreaming of a day. He is visioning a day. He is seeing a day where God has given him this word to say there is going to come into this broken, busted world a day where I'm going to bring hope. When I was in high school, and this happens every 10, 15, 12, 3, 4 years, where there is prophecy that the world is going to end, that the rapture is going to happen on this day. You've heard of these things, right? You've heard of these things. And the rapture is going to come and the world's going to end right here. And we were talking about it on my high school basketball team. And a couple of us were kind of hoping it would happen so that we could miss the summer workouts, because they were just absolutely torture. But lo and behold, they did not come and the running did. And when the season, or when the summer was over, we were sitting at the very end, and a couple of us looked at each other and said, well, I guess the rapture didn't come. I guess the world's going to keep going. And one of the guys on the team looked at us and said, well, how would you know? Let that sit there for a second. How would you know if the rapture came, he was saying? You'd still be here no matter what. And then we began to laugh and to talk kind of like that. And we began to say, well, is there someone we haven't seen? Is there anyone that we haven't seen? And somebody would say, well, I haven't seen Stan. And we'd go, yeah, but Stan's fine. We don't have to worry about him getting raptured. He's going to be here no matter what. And then we'd talk and laugh. And then we got to a guy named Eugene Oldham. And we said, if anybody was going to get raptured, it was Eugene. So we decided to get in our cars and drive to Eugene's house to make sure he was still with us. We got there, and you could hear the TV. It was loud. Cars were in the driveway, and it was obvious people were home. Well, it was obvious that there was a time that people were home. But we knocked on the doors and screamed and shouted, and no one came. And we looked at each other, and I got to be honest with you, 17-year-old Derek was a little nervous. We got to the cars, and then all of a sudden we heard Eugene shouting, guys, here I am. I didn't hear you. Here I am. We ran to him and hugged him because we realized we had not been left behind. That's not what this text is. This text is a gift of saying, always be ready for me. Always be ready and seeing and hearing that I'm coming. Luke doesn't give the be ready because you might be at work or be ready that you might be in the field. Luke gives the picture of nature. Luke gives the picture of creation, that there will be shaking earth and trembling earth and fire in the sky. Luke was kind of dramatic. But every time I think of it, every time I read this text, I think of Van Gogh's Starry Night. Are you familiar with it? Van Gogh's Starry Night picture. And in the Starry Night picture, there are fireballs, there are flames in the heavens. And when I see that, I got to tell you, I don't get scared. I don't get nervous. I don't look at that and go, ooh. I look and go, that's beautiful. That flame, that touch, that torch, it brings a beauty. Van Gogh brings a beauty in through that flame. And it's beautiful. When you hear these texts, they're not to make us scared. They are to show us the beauty of God. They are to introduce us to the intricacies of the grace, the peace, the love, and the absolute gorgeous nature of who God is. When Malachi is telling the same story as Isaiah, when he's laying out this picture, this vision from God, he uses the language of refiner's fire and fuller's soap. Are you familiar with it? Let me tell you about my pawpaw. Just by the fact that we called him pawpaw, that tells you enough about my family, right? Pawpaw Lavender. Pawpaw was a mechanic. He had a gas station and opened up a shop, and from that shop he built a wrecker service, citywide wrecker service in Athens. But the entire time I knew Pawpaw, he had grease under his nails. Every time you saw Pawpaw, when he came in, he was covered. His hands, his wrists, his arms, his fingernails, on his face, everywhere was grease. And what I thought, slime. But you know what Pawpaw had? He had a secret weapon. He had this orange goop. Are you familiar with the orange goop? That he could put that on his hands with a little bit of water and that slime would disappear. That oil would be gone. Do you know what we never had in my house growing up? Orange goop. You know why? Because we can't fix anything. It wasn't needed. If something broke, we had to call somebody to come fix it. So you didn't need it because there was no slime. So let me say to you right now, if you don't need the goop, if you don't need the fuller soap, if your life is perfect and you are precious and your life has no sin and no animosity and no struggle in it, you can go. But if you're like me, and you can be a little mean and a little petty and a little jealous and a little angry and say some words you shouldn't, we need that goop. And we need that goop and know that that goop is not a threat. That goop, that fuller soap, is a gift to us that brings us beautiful, that brings us into the presence of God, that gives us hope. We know that that goop is what brings us clean. And it is a gift, not a threat. And that refiner's fire, Malachi said that refiner's fire takes this stuff, this worthless stuff, this worthless elements, these rocks, this nothing, and it burns and it turns it into these precious gems. How many times this month, this year, have you felt worthless? How many times have you had these moments where you just didn't feel worthy? Where you just didn't feel up to it? This refiner's fire is not a threat. This refiner's fire is not something to be feared, but it is something to seek and to appreciate and to value. Because this fire comes into our lives. This fire, this heat comes into our lives, and it creates in us. Now, if you're already precious, If you already got everything beautiful in your heart and soul, don't worry about the fire. You're good. But if you're like me, you need that fire. We need that fire. We need that soap to come into us. We need to hear these words and be grateful. You know, when Isaiah wrote these words that we read, they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. That text gets used a lot. Gun control and all that, doesn't it? Take a deep breath. Hold on, take a deep breath. It gets used a lot in that conversation, but that's not what it's supposed to be. It's not what it means. See, Isaiah was a part of a people and a part of a nation and a part of a world where the government's foot was on their throat every day. They knew what it was like to have their children taken from them through war. They knew what it was like to watch their parents killed. They knew what it was like for their neighbors to disappear in the middle of the night. And Isaiah hears a word from God, one day we shall be free. Isaiah hears a word. Isaiah receives a word from God that says one day there will be war no more. One day Isaiah is saying these weapons that ruin our lives and destroy our way of life and are literally killing us, they will exist no more and there will be peace. That's not the world we live in. That's not the reality we have. But here is the reality that we have. When was the last time you really felt free? When was the last time that you sat and you felt grateful for everything? That you didn't feel trapped, that you didn't feel constrained? When was the last time that sin or envy or animosity or anger or bitterness wasn't just tearing at a fabric of not only of ourselves and our souls, but our families and our community? We need this word from Isaiah because one day Jesus is going to come, God's going to come, and you better be ready because it could come at any moment, at any time, in any second. My friend, the Reverend Dr. Roy Stowe, reminds me that she loves Advent because it makes the world feel the way that she feels all the time. The truth of the matter is we all feel this way all the time. We're constantly looking, constantly hoping, praying for God to come into the world in the way that the Scripture tells us He is going to. But do you know what keeps us from being ready? Do you know what keeps us from being ready for that to come in? The preacher will tell you it's passion, it's lust. Other preachers will tell you it's gluttony. I stay away from that one. We're laughing that hard, Bruce. It's not that funny. It's not that. It's not the passions. What keeps us from experiencing, what will keep us from being ready for Jesus is contentment. Because at the end of the day, what we seek are not passions, what we seek we seek contentment. We are trained, we are molded to constantly be seeking to be content, to constantly find something that's going to finally make us happy and contented. It's a lie. There is nothing that can bring contentment. There is nothing that can bring peace and happiness. Because if you look at the starry sky of Jesus' life, as beautiful and as wonderful as it is, there are fireballs all through it. This is a man who winds up on a cross. This is a child who will grow up to be murdered. That's our Savior. We cannot seek contentment. We must seek righteousness and discipleship. We must seek to be close to Jesus Christ in all things and in all times. Hear the promise from the prophet. Let me ask you, what is it that you need to keep you contented? Let me give you a little piece of my life. 2 weeks ago, I got in the car to drive to Dallas, Georgia for a teaching parish group, and I got 15 minutes out from the house and I realized I had done something horrible. You're going to gasp when I say it. I had left my phone at home. Do you know what I did? I turned around, drove the 15 minutes back to get my phone, and then drove back to Dallas, Georgia. Nobody was going to call me. The GPS is in the car. I didn't even need it for the GPS. I just could not live without the phone. I've got to have that phone. When I get home today, at some point, when I get home today, I'll set my phone down on the island in the kitchen, and then I'll walk around, and Jen will tell you, I'll just walk in circles, and I'm going to keep hitting that thing. I'll walk in circles, my ADD will kick in, I'll think about the sermon, I'll think about the week, and I'll just be walking in circles. And at some point, I will need to go upstairs. And do you know what I will do before I go upstairs? I will grab my phone. Because who knows what could happen in those 15 minutes that I'm upstairs. And if I don't have my phone, FOMO is going to hit me, the fear of missing out. I've got to have my phone with me because I don't know what's going to happen. When was the last time you cooked without a podcast on or a show? When was the last time you got in the car for more than 2 or 3 minutes and didn't have to listen to something for something to engage you and grab you? Brothers and sisters, we're not going to miss because of our ugliness. We're not going to miss because of our anger. We're going to miss because we're too contented and too busy trying to keep up with the rest of the world to actually hear and experience Jesus. Be ready at all times, in all moments. I love this movie, It's a Wonderful Life. Last piece. I love it. I watch it every year. I've watched it every year since I was at least 7 or 8 years old. Every year that I can remember, I watch this movie. It is something that I will make sure I do. Jen and I will probably watch it Friday night. She watches it with me, bless her heart. Say a prayer for her that she has to sit with me and watch it every year. It's something that we do. But something happened last year that was different. Something happened last year that had never happened to me in all the years of watching it. I did not watch it last year. I experienced it. I love it when he's a kid and he's a boy and he's in the pharmacy and they're talking about milkshakes and the girls are kind of arguing over him already. I love it when he grows up and there's different scenes and they're walking around and they're at the dance in high school. I love that movie. I don't know why, but I love that movie. But when they got to where he wanted to give up his life, and if you haven't seen the movie, and I have found out this week, a lot of people haven't seen the movie, bless your hearts. When he's going around and he wants to die, this year I felt it. Last year I felt it. That hopelessness, that lost, that hurt. I felt it. And I felt it in a way that I had never felt before. And I watched him with eyes that went, I get it. I get it. And when he stood in the family room, and his friends traveled from all over, and they began to sing. For the first time in my life, I cried as I watched it. I cried. I know how busy you're going to be. I know. I know the pressure to make sure the house is decorated perfect. I know the pressure to get the first gift. You've got reports and you've got business by the end of the year. Starting today through the 26th, I'll preach 16 sermons, 1 homily. Try to set a budget for 2022. Good luck with a new variant coming. I've got district meetings, church meetings, all kinds of meetings, Christmas party. I get it. I know what it is to be busy right now. But hear me, hear the preacher. Hear the preacher, hear the preacher, hear the preacher. Don't be so busy that you can't stop and be still. Because in this business, in this life, in this place, in this world, in this family, in this hope, if we don't allow ourselves to be still, we won't be ready for that day. We won't be ready for that moment. There's a video I'm about to show you. And I didn't forget Jesse. He's been wondering why we hadn't shown it yet. There's a video I wanted to end with today instead of start with. See, we were originally going to show you videos from the movie, and then I realized half the room won't have seen it. It won't be any good. So we began to have this conversation of, if there were things that you knew then that you know now, would it have been any different? Well, here's what I want you to know. Here's what I want you to hear. I don't want you on December 26th to say, where did Advent go? I can't believe it's already over. Because you say it every year. And so I want to go ahead and tell you, I want to go ahead and lay it out for you now. Plan to be still. Plan to stop and to experience it. We've got a full calendar of Christmas Advent events. If they don't help you be still, if they don't help you draw close to Christ, don't go. Don't come. Step away from the pressure. Step away from the anxiety. And hear these parents as they talk about children coming into their lives.
If you knew what you know now as a parent, what would you do differently to prepare?
Or watch these parents as they talk about
So
children
for
coming
me,
into their own.
I did
We
so
can't hear
much
it, guys.
research when I was pregnant with Charlotte. I read so many books, countless books. I took classes. I just did so much that I thought.
If you knew what you know now as a parent, what would you do differently to prepare?
So for me, I did so much research when I was pregnant with Charlotte. I read so many books, countless books. I took classes. I just did so much that I thought was like the right preparation. And it was beneficial for sure. But the moment that she was born and placed on my chest, it was as if my world went from black and white to color. So everything changed for me. And in the same way, I feel like my knowledge just kind of dropped in a lot. So what I would do differently is relax more, know that my instincts were going to kick in, and try not to stress over making sure I learned everything there was to learn about having a baby before she was here.
You don't actually have to practice changing diapers. It's not that hard. And don't underestimate the power of a good nap.
One thing I think I would do differently if we knew what we know now is to really take time to take care of yourself. You spend so much of your time worried about the little person you created and when is the next feeding, when is the next sleep, why aren't they sleeping, why aren't they eating, and you really, I think, just lose sight of who you are and remember to take care of yourself.
I feel like we never mentally prepared to think how COVID could and now is affecting his first year of life and how the decisions that we've made, especially the tough ones, to protect him.
What we've learned is that it's not one size fit all. Every baby is different, and that you can take things from different sources and advice from different people and figure out what works best for you and your child.
When people offer help, it doesn't make you any less of a parent to take them up on that. So just relying on your support system has been really, really crucial for us.
Take the word from these young families. It's going to be okay. We're in a stressful period, a stressful season that's going to ratchet up even more. Give yourself a chance to take a break. Give yourself a chance to breathe and receive Christ. Amen? Let's stand and sing.